Welcome to Outdoors in Maine. My guest tonight is a return guest, Craig McLaughlin. He is the project leader for the bear studies here in the state of Maine. Now, Craig has been working for quite a few years now on studying the black bear in Maine, a viable game animal here in the state of Maine. And just recently we had quite a bit of publicity on some orphan black bears, baby bears, and a lot of requests for whatever happened to these particular bears. So Craig was in on this, and he's helped place these bears. To give us a background on what has happened to these bears tonight and some more information on the health of the Maine bear herd. Right back, folks, after a word from our sponsors.
Storing your valuables safely can be a problem. Allen's Transfer and Storage in Augusta is equipped with clean and secure containers to store your possessions, whatever they are. Household contents, equipment, even pianos. Allen's staff is well-trained, experienced, and considerate. They treat your belongings as if they were their own. Allen's is the agent for North American Van Lines, so you can always depend on them to do a highly professional job. For the best in transportation and security, call Allen's Transfer and Storage, Civic Center Drive in Augusta.
Whether a field champion or a loving house pet, doesn't your dog deserve the very best at feeding time? D.F. Hastings Distributors on Eastern Avenue, Route 17 in Augusta, are statewide distributors for the finest foods you can serve your pet, supplying leading kennels and veterinarians, as well as pet, hardware, and feed stores throughout Maine. Hastings Distributors has the scientifically correct answer for any dog's special dietary needs. D.F. Hastings Distributors provides only the best for the best, your pet.
Spring, nature's gift to you, presented again this year with the loving, caring help of the professionals at Bob Bishop Landscape and Nursery Company, Route 202, Manchester, Maine. Flowering shrubs, landscaped lawns, charming plantings, Bob Bishop does it all. Spring special, only $35 for a Bob Bishop design, and you receive a $35 gift certificate. Bob Bishop Landscape and Nursery Company, Route 202, Manchester. Call 622-0811, open 7 days a week.
In case some of you just tuned in, my guest tonight is Craig McLaughlin from the Fish and Game Department. He's the project leader for the bear studies here in the state of Maine, and I think tonight's footage is really unusually good footage. Craig, now we are going to be dealing with baby bears, orphan bears, and so on tonight in our show. Is this a rarity to find orphan bears in the woods
No,
in Maine?
It's rather uncommon, but it does occur just about every year. Large equipment, usually loggers, will disturb a nest or two, and we'll end up with a few orphans to place.
The mother will desert them if they're roughed up? I mean, if the den is roughed up?
It takes usually disturbance by a large piece of machinery. If a person walking through the woods comes close to a den, they usually don't leave the den. It takes something major, a major catastrophe to get them to leave the den.
And then they'll take off. Mm-hmm. Now, you told me, I think you said last year you had much more than the 3 we saw publicized this year.
Right. This year we had 1 litter. Last year we had 2 litters of 3 each. We placed all 6 last year.
Now, where did they come from, the last year's bears? You have any memory on what happened in that situation?
One was in the Haynesville area, and I'm not certain exactly where the other one came from. It was northern Maine.
You placed 6 last year. How did they make out of survival with the surrogate mothers?
5 of the 6 made it through the denning period. Again, the health of the animals before we get them usually determines whether they make it or not.
I see.
They've been left out in the woods for 2 or 3 days. They get things like pneumonia and physical problems that take a toll.
You're right, the mortality rate. So they've been away from mother quite a while. Without any good sustenance of food or nourishment, that probably plays into the picture as well. And this year you got 3. Now, where did those 3 come from this year, those 3 orphan bears?
They came down from the southern York County area of Maine.
Way down in the southern part. That's unusual in that area to find bears that far south.
Right. Well, we're having an increase in range.
Oh, they are? They're spreading out? Oh, that's interesting.
And we took them to the Bradford, Alton area near Bangor and released them.
Right. Now, many people have been confused quite badly so about this business of finding baby bears and animals in the woods. But as we'll see as we get into this point, I want to explain the aspect of finding wild animals, what you should do at this point. Bob, why don't we have some of this footage to see some of these beautiful baby bears? I can see why people get very upset and very concerned. They look very cuddly now. Right. But as you said earlier, they tend to grow up into big wild bears.
Right.
Now, here are the people, I assume, that discovered these bears or loved them?
No, this footage was taken in Bangor when we tagged the bears prior to placing them with the surrogate mothers.
Oh, I see. This was up in your station up in Bangor. So.
Right.
Now, how old are these cub bears? Right?
Approximately 2 months of age. They're usually born about the middle of January, and this was the middle of March when this occurred.
And the mother doesn't wake up at all when they're born, or at least she doesn't do any moving around.
Right. She doesn't seem to be aware of a lot when she's in the den. I'm sure she knows she has cubs fairly shortly when they start nursing.
Right. What's transpiring here?
We're tagging them so we can identify the individual bears and distinguish them from the bear's natural cubs when we go in and check the den later on.
Right. Now again, you see how they look so helpless and so cute and cuddly. But it's the same idea when you adopt a kitten or a dog. The same thing happens. They look so cute now, but you got to remember they grew up into be 200 or 300 pound bear, and you really can't raise them. I was talking with Paul Forney of Fish and Wildlife Department, the information education aspect. Said he received quite a few letters. These bears were in all of the AP, all the papers, Associated Press, went to Connecticut and so on. They received letters from Connecticut. 2 little girls down there said, send them the baby bears, and they would raise them, be glad to do it. And it's somewhat sad because people don't realize these are wild animals, and they're not to be domesticated. You were telling me before, it's very bad to domesticate a deer or a black bear. Would you want to elaborate on just why it is?
Well, because they become a nuisance. They're not a wild animal in the sense that they can't forage for themselves and they're not used to finding food on their own. They're used to looking towards man for their food. However, they're still wild in that they have instincts that tend to make them a problem to deal with. They can injure you, especially during the breeding season. A bear going into breeding season would become pretty unpredictable to handle.
Could be very ugly and hostile, to say the least. There was a story, this is a true story, this was way back, long before even you were born. I was a young boy, so that's dating myself, but back in the late 40s, there was a case where a person raised 2 bears from cubs, and they were 3 years old or better, and he fed them every day, and they were very complacent normally. They went in there one morning, and they turned on him and they killed him. Now again, as you say, reverting back, no one knows why, but they're still wild animals, and they do have that capacity to be to attack you. There's no way out of it. Also, getting back to another aspect, another letter came in from a lady from in Maine. Said she had raised 6 children and 3 baby raccoons, and would gladly take these 3 bear on to also raise them. And that upset Paul a bit because he had to write back and explain to her that it's against the law to take any wild animal and keep it in your house as a pet or raise it as a domesticate the animal. Now, you gave me some background which I found quite interesting as far as wardens are concerned. It's against the law to raise wild animals. You want to give us some background on that?
Well, they strongly discourage it because of the fact that they do tend to become nuisances, these animals that are raised for a while and then released into the wild to fend for themselves. They generally show up around houses and things. This is frowned upon, and it's very difficult to get a permit after the fact. If you pick up an animal that you feel is orphaned, you probably will have it taken away from you.
You have to apply for what they call a menagerie license.
That's right, a special permit to keep the animal,
right.
And they're not too willing to give those out.
After the fact, as you say, the wardens discourage this. If you keep a pet, we'll say a raccoon or a deer or what have you, for a 2-week period, then you say, gee, I better get a permit. They won't give it to you, as you say. I'm pretty sure this is the way it would work out. Now, here you are, Craig. We can recognize you here. What's going on right now?
We're trying to locate the exact position of the den with the radio telemetry gear. This gives us the collar that the bear is wearing, the female is wearing, has a signal that is emitted, and we can, through a directional antenna, find exactly where she's denning. This is the den area right now I'm pointing towards, the entrance of it.
You told me a story. You just kind of lucked out on this. You weren't quite sure where the den was, and you walked in the woods.
I had sketchy notes on it, and we ended up walking very close to it before we set up the antenna.
Almost there to go. I think you're getting intuitive. You've been working with these bears so long now, Craig. Getting back to that, how long have you been working on this research project? And
the research project in Maine has been going on for 9 years. I've personally been working on bears for 6 years.
6 years at this time. So all this time you've been gathering information. You told me also that it's been expedited or speeded up the last few years. Was there any particular reason for that? More money coming in from the federal government or something of that sort?
No. What happened at that time was it was reevaluated. The program is reevaluated periodically, and we decided we needed more information to make any intelligent decisions about the resource, and to do that we had to speed up our research efforts. We've increased the amount of animals we are handling dramatically in the last 3 years.
Now, you told me how many bears have you collared, put radio collars on over those years?
We have 58 collared at present.
Right.
Roughly, I would say, nearly 100 different animals have been collared over those last 9 years, but at present we have 58 active collars in 2 study areas that are very active right now.
And you told me over the years you've had, what, 900 you actually collared?
We have, well, actually tagged approximately 900 different animals.
I see.
But about approximately 700 of those were taken, had been tagged during the last 3 years.
That shows
So
quite a increased acceleration
right,
in your
our
program.
efforts,
Right.
And the larger your sample size, the more accurate the information you have.
That's a very good point. Now, here, when you place these babies with their surrogate mothers, did you have to tranquilize the mother bear in this case, or what was the reaction?
No, we generally don't. We generally don't tranquilize the female. We just, it's very anticlimactic. All we do is walk up to the den and drop the cub in, and she generally will crawl to where it's supposed to and start suckling.
That's what Paul said. This particular one we saw you place it. You went in, you saw him scurry over the top of his mother, and then he disappeared on the other side and found a nipple and started to suckle for some nice milk. Probably was hungry by that time. He'd been carried around in your jackets, as we saw in the first part of the show. You were put him in the jackets for warmth, I assume. Was that the reason behind that? You were saying also that the game, as a game animal, has become quite a resource. I was thinking back in the 50s, at that time, they used to call him just a vermin. And there was a $20 bounty on it back in the 50s, and I've seen small cubs shot and mothers shot. With $20 a piece, people would almost go out and do anything to get a bear just for the bounty. Now, today, they're a very viable big game animal, bring a lot of money into the state, and well protected. Now, you're allowed one bear, and you have to tag that just like you do a deer at this point in time. And you people, because of this, probably got some impetus to have a more serious study on the health of the bear herd and so on. And how is it looking right now in the bear herd as far as you've seen it? I'm a little premature on this. But
right, we're still analyzing our results, but it looks like the population has been increasing slightly in the last 5 years or so. It's expanding into new parts of the state. Bear sightings are being reported in parts of the state that they haven't seen bear for years.
That's amazing. This York one, for example. Right. Now, some of these people we're viewing now from CBS, they were up there when you...
no, this was AP, the AP.
Oh, excuse me,
Associated Press.
Associated Press, I'm sorry.
This is when we went in 2 days later and immobilized the mother and checked on her natural family as well as the condition of the orphan.
Oh, so this is a follow-up section here going right now.
Right.
The net, that's a precautionary net. I remember when George Matula one day went into I had him on film here. He didn't use the net. And I thought it was quite suicidal myself. We labeled it George Matula, Suicidal George, we called him. Because I don't think I'd want to go into a den, although you folks do this quite often, don't you? Go into a den, you don't worry about the net.
Right.
Don't they get a little bit hostile when you wake them up in the middle of the winter, or not?
Well, yes, they do. We take normal precautions, and we immobilize them. What we do, we put them to sleep before we take them out of the den. Right.
But there have been occasions where the needle, when you jabbed them, broke or bent, and then you had a very irate sow on your hands.
Yes, occasionally. Occasionally they'll come out of the den. That's the purpose of the net. We sack them and can handle them there.
Then you can tranquilize them from that particular point. Now, this is a recheck of the 3 bears. Now, you planted all 3 with different mothers. I think you told me one mother already had, what, 3 babies of her own?
Right. Two of the surrogate mothers had litters of 3, and one had a litter of 2. This is the litter that you're looking at now. We'll soon see. She has 2 of her own.
She had 2, so that gave her 3.
Right. We generally try to place them with older sows that we feel have a bigger supply of milk and nutrients and that are able to take care of an extra young.
Extra one, extra mouth to feed, so to speak. Right. And this one here, you said had 2, so that made her 3 with the orphan. Right. You said you had one. I think you said you checked them, what, 2 weeks later, or was this?
This was 2 of the bears we could get to 2 days later. We had trouble with the weather, and the other one we had to wait for a week or more before we checked it. And then we checked. That's the one that we lost. She had 3 of her own, 3 very large, scrappy male cubs, and we placed just the way the luck turned out, we placed the smallest bear, smallest of the orphans with it, which was a small female. And she was outcompeted by the males.
For the milk and the food.
Right.
But there was no way if you to adjust, you just put them in the den and...
there's no way we can tell before we place them with the...
You can't pick the single mother, you just find a bear that you have to put them with. So in other words, 2 out of the 3 survived that we got all of the publicity exposure on the AP. And the year before you said you had 5 or 6
5
survived.
or 6 survived,
So that's a pretty good amount, to tell you the truth. There's no alternative, really. There's no place for a baby bear. As I say, these people meant well when they talk about I'll raise them and so on, but you just can't do that.
They're wild animals, and we feel they should live and die in the woods.
They have a mortality rate just like any other type of wild animal or any other type of animal, for that matter. This does intrigue me, though. This spring baby bears. Now, how many baby bears have you counted this spring on the ones you checked? Do you have radio collars?
We had most of the collared bears that we were checking this year happened to be in the yearling phase. In other words, they were with yearling or 1-year-old cubs. The cubs will stay with the mother usually 18 months. We only had 9 litters of young cubs, and of those 9, we had an average litter size of 2.5. I think it was 23 different cubs we had.
That's an excellent reproductive rate, I think, right there. Now, you say at the present time you have 58
collared females.
with collared females, so you can check them as they come out of their dens this spring. Can you be able to check them from plane? How will you do this?
Right, we'll use the plane.
Use the airplane on that. Then you can tell where they're roving. I have one question I want to ask you that is relevant as far as many of my viewers are concerned. We used to have a spring bear hunt. A lot of opposition to it and so on, and so it's been canceled. Now, how do you feel this affects the reproduction or the females, the rate of reproduction for the black bear population?
It's too early to tell for sure. However, what we're finding is that there's 2 problems here. One is that, well, when you shorten the season, obviously you're going to, quote, save some bears. You're going to have a less time for them to be killed by hunters. But in the fall of the year, the females with young cubs are generally the ones that are most susceptible to hunting. They're out roaming quite a bit. This time of the year, or in the spring of the year, the young cubs act as an anchor on the mother. They don't move a lot after they leave the den, and we think that actually less females and less cubs would be shot if we had a spring season, right?
Then the fall.
That's just based on their movements, and we still have to do some more analysis before we come up with
the fall hunt. You're saying there's actually more hunters in the woods, plus the chance right across the female who's moving around.
Right, they're moving quite a bit now. They have older cubs that are very able to keep up, and they're very hungry, and they're all running around trying to find something to eat, and they're very susceptible to hunters.
Getting ready for the winter, actually. They're storing fat
that's
up.
That's when they're actively feeding for the winter denning period.
When they hibernate. Now, these people we're viewing here, they're all from the Associated Press?
Yes, they're AP reporters.
Is this a new bear you're calling, or just replacing an old
We're just replacing the collar on this animal. She's a 10-year-old female we have had collared this is the first denning season we've been able to investigate her.
Is that so? She's 10 years old. I think you show here a tooth for her, Charlotte. Maybe we've gone by it. Where she's, the teeth are worn down.
Right, very worn.
There
we go. Very worn teeth.
That means that you've got...
indication of the older animals.
Right. Wonder how, they're worn down, the one broken off, they're worn down, right?
It looked like the one canine was broken off. They're always getting into all kinds of roots and bark and things, and they're rough on their teeth.
They can break them off. Now, here's one of the orphan, is this an orphan cub or one of the mothers?
I believe that's the orphan. I don't think we've tagged the bears yet.
I see. That's the ear tags indicate that this year's bear, I suppose, are color-coded, so you can tell them if they're...
Yes, they're numbered. That's the biggest thing. All the orphan, all the young cub tags are red, but they're a different tag than what we place in the larger bear's ears.
I see.
They're smaller tagged.
Now, so let's say this bear, how big would this bear be in the fall?
By this fall, that animal should weigh in the neighborhood of 50 pounds.
All right,
45 to 50 pounds.
It is possible they could get harvested with those ear tags on them.
Right, oh, definitely.
What should a person do if they do shoot a bear that has an ear tag on it?
Okay, they're required to submit the tags with the tooth that they're also required to submit when they register the bear at the registration.
Oh, I see.
They'll put it right in the tooth envelope.
Oh, I see. That's right, I forgot they do have to register them, so there's a good chance right there. Here we have Wilmot Robinson on there a minute ago. He's a close friend of mine. He's a writer, outdoor writer, and so on.
Excellent writer. Right?
He is excellent writer, and he's up in Katahdin country. He writes for the Maine Sportsman and not many other one of the best dog men I know in the state. I've been on a couple of trips bird hunting with him. Here you are. Now these little fellas get very upset when you put them on their ears.
It's like giving them pierced earrings.
Maybe you're right. Maybe Bob's got them squalling on the background noise here. Now you're putting them right back into the dens, obviously. Now, over the period of time, you said 9 years you've been researching, studying these bears. What have you come up with for, we'll say, feasible samplings or studies on this research? What has come out of it so far that you feel is of value as far as the herd is concerned? Anything you put your fingers right on that you
Well,
feel
we're
lightning?
investigating how long it takes them to reproduce. We find that bears in Maine generally require 5 years to become sexually mature and have their first litter. That's important, and also what else is important is the litter size and the frequency between litters. What we're doing when we manage a population is balancing births with deaths. And if we know how many bears we have and how fast they're reproducing, how many adult females we have in the population, we have an indication of how many we can take.
Good. Right back, folks, with more information.
Everyone knows that Fleury's is the second largest firearms dealer in Maine. But for the fisherman who wants to round out his tackle box, Fleury's has all the gear for the fly fishing, spin casting, even the deep sea fisherman. Plus, the latest scientific angling equipment like depth finders and downriggers. Fleury's knowledgeable staff can give you expert advice on rods and reels, whether you're a beginner or an old hand. Even though Fleury's concentrates on hunting and fishing, they also carry a full line of athletic equipment. Whatever your sport, it's Fleury's in Winthrop on Route 202.
Whether a field champion or a loving house pet, doesn't your dog deserve the very best at feeding time? D.F. Hastings Distributors on Eastern Avenue, Route 17 in Augusta, are statewide distributors for the finest foods you can serve your pet, supplying leading kennels and veterinarians, as well as pet, hardware, and feed stores throughout Maine. Hastings Distributors has the scientifically correct answer for any dog's special dietary needs. D.F. Hastings Distributors provides only the best for the best, your pet.
Seems like only yesterday the family gathered around one of these small screen sets to see all that they could see on local and network channels. Today, it's not just the shape of the screen that's changed, it's the shape of the medium. Now you can tune in enough call letters to start your own alphabet. And that's why you need TV Guide. Because over 30 years of on-the-job training helps TV Guide make sense of a medium on the move. With expanded grids, detailed listings, reliable movie previews, and writing that goes straight to the heart of television.
Now, you can order 30 issues of TV Guide for just 3 easy payments of $3.75 each. For more information on how you can take advantage of this offer, just call 1-800-345-8503, extension 607. That's 1-800-345-8503, extension 607, toll-free. Call toll-free for TV Guide, the official guide for state cable.
Craig, getting back to more information on Maine's bear herd, we've seen the work you folks do, or the hard work you folks do on monitoring these bears, studying these bears. Again, how do you see Maine's bear herd being managed? What do you think some of the things might be that would improve it or help a lot? Or what is your reaction to what's going on right now?
Right now we appear to have a very thriving, healthy bear population in the state. And I don't see where hunting is, although hunting is a main source of mortality, I don't see where we are over-harvesting the resource at this point.
They have about 1,000 a year, right? That's the limit. Only 1,000 is allowed.
That was developed off of population estimates that were developed again over 10 years ago. We're reevaluating our population, and it seems like we have quite a bit more bears than we had thought 10 years ago.
Initially, right.
So therefore, in the last 2 years, we took 1,221 and 1,412 bears in 82 and 83, and we don't feel that is excessive. No, the tag return rate that we are getting from our tagged bears shows that it's well within bounds.
How about any idea on the ratio of mature bears to immature bears being harvested? Haven't you got around to doing that type of sampling yet on the tagging stations? That is.
We've seen the reporting rate from hunters show that approximately 15 to 20% of the harvested cubs coming in, and that's seems normal in most harvested bear populations. So.
Well, strange enough, Paul Levine was telling me on the deer harvesting that 50% of the harvest in the fall is yearlings and fawns. So you see, that does take off the slack on the adults, which are the reproducing animals, obviously. So if you do shoot a younger bear, it still takes care of the tag, that saves the older one. So there is a point to that as well. As a game management tool, that is. So.
Right. Also, the rate of tag return and the percentage of tags of adults and on young ones that are coming back is well within the reproductive capacity of the bear population.
So I'll ask you a long, short question. The last question of the night. We're running out of time. What do you think is the future of the Maine bear population? Do you think it's going well? Or?
Strangely enough, I think that the biggest problem we have to deal with our bear in the future is going to be handling nuisance. Bear-people interactions. This thing about adopting orphan cubs is one aspect of it, but as bears continue to expand into areas where there's people, they can actually live in your backyard, believe it or not.
Yes, they can.
The big thing is training people how to live with bears.
That's a good point.
That is more important, I think, than dealing constantly with just the hunting aspect of it.
That's a very good point. They will, as you well know and I well know, they will take a domestic animal. They'll take a pig if they sometimes get big, sheep, pig, something they can catch. They're opportunists.
Right. The biggest problem we have right now appears to be the beekeepers complaining about beehives in the Barrens area, the down east area. That is a problem we have to deal with, and we have to deal with nuisance with garbage as well.
Yeah, the garbage, that's very true. Up in the parks years ago, well, before they stopped having the open dumps in Baxter Park, used to have bear up. That caused some trouble. They come into the camping areas as well, and that could be, I can see your point, a very well taken point, that bears may become so common here, they can become a real serious nuisance. So there is a need to have a harvesting situation.
Right. Not only do we have bear moving into new ranges, we also have our population of people in Maine expanding slightly
into the bears habitat, right. Right back, folks.
Spring, nature's gift to you, presented again this year with the loving, caring help of the professionals at Bob Bishop Landscape and Nursery Company, Route 202, Manchester, Maine. Flowering shrubs, landscaped lawns, charming plantings, Bob Bishop does it all. Spring special, only $35 for a Bob Bishop design, and you receive a $35 gift certificate. Bob Bishop Landscape and Nursery Company, Route 202, Manchester. Call 622-0811, open 7 days a week.
Storing your valuables safely can be a problem. Allen's Transfer and Storage in Augusta is equipped with clean and secure containers to store your possessions, whatever they are. Household contents, equipment, even pianos. Allen's staff is well-trained, experienced, and considerate. They treat your belongings as if they were their own. Allen's is the agent for North American Van Lines, so you can always depend on them to do a highly professional job. For the best in transportation and security, call Allen's Transfer and Storage, Civic Center Drive in Augusta.
With over 2,500 guns on hand and experts to give advice, it's no surprise that Fleury Sporting Goods on Route 202 in Winthrop is Maine's second largest gun dealer. Their wide selection of ammo and reloading equipment at discount prices has satisfied many outdoorsmen. And for the archer, Fleury has the largest selection of top-name archery equipment. So remember, for all your hunting, fishing, and sporting goods, it's Fleury's, Route 202 in Winthrop.
Well, Craig, I want to thank you for coming down today from Boston, getting away from the bears for a while, and explaining what happened to those 3 baby bears. A lot of people were worried. They asked me about what happened to them, and now we realize they have good homes. We did lose one, but that's not unusual for a mortality rate, as you explained it to me. So, again, thanks, and thank you folks for viewing it, tuning in tonight, and we hope to see you next week, same time, same station. Good night.